Kry salom familie en vriende, dit voel baie goed om terug te wees. Vandag het ek 'n baie belangrike episode en ek glo almal kan ietsie leer deur hierdie episode en as baie testimonials van baie groot ouens met groot kaliber wat geval het vir las en ek voel net dat dit 'n belangrike topic is om oor te praat. Min mense besef hoe gevaarlik last is. Maar kom ons dive in die episode. En wat is lust? Lust is an intense desire for something. Lust can take any form such as the lust for sexual activity, money, power, greed, selfs gluttony. Ek bedoel as ek so op TikTok scroll, dat sien ek hoe hierdie ouens met die groot mukbangs of whatever hulle het call op TikTok sit. En dis net devastating om te sien. En as ek deur die comments gaan, niemand vermaan nie. En dis baie bitter om te aanskou. So gluttony is ook een van die gevaarlikste vorms van lust. En om het op te som, dis basies 'n passionate desire for something that kan similar wees. Om te kry, soos ek nou genoem het, gluttony, om te cover in the desire. Maar dit is 'n baie gevaarlike, hoe kan ek sê, baie gevaarlike craving, man.
Lust. Lust is the final boss. Not anger, not pride, not greed. Lust. David, the giant slayer, the man after God's heart, fell to Bathsheba's beauty. Solomon, the wisest king to ever live, was led astray by foreign women. Samson, blessed with supernatural strength, lost everything for Delilah's touch. And these weren't weak men by any means. They conquered armies, built kingdoms, moved mountains, but every single one of them fell to the same enemy. And if you're not careful, you will too. God teaches us to flee from sexual immorality. All other sins a person commits are outside the body, but whoever sins sexually sins against their own body. If you can't master your desires, you've mastered nothing. Every man's story has two possible endings: victory over himself or defeat by his own hand. Write yours very carefully.
The greatest downfall of man is what? Lust, sexual temptation. And unfortunately, we don't.
Vir meer konteks lees 2 Samuel 11. Hy elaborate basies op King David se situasie waar hy Uriah die tyd doodgemaak het as gevolg van die adultery wat hy commit het met Bathsheba. Vir meer konteks lees 2 Samuel 11 waar hy nou meer gaan elaborate op King David so foolishness om het op te som.
We're unaware that science has shown us that lust, when you're a slave to it, it negatively impacts the prefrontal cortex, which affects our decision-making skills. So you look at David in his life, here it is, he's king. He had a concubine, right? Okay, look what it did to his mind. One of his warriors. You know, where I'm from, that's a worthy offense to kill David.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you gonna sell out your boy for some sex? Even deeper, brother, it falls into a lack of self-love if we really deal on a psychological level. What makes you become a Lothario or a man who's promiscuous, that he doesn't even value his own temple, that he got to sleep with everyone else for affirmation. When I see the damage that it does to his sons, and then the ill effects of that in their graves, and then how statistics show us that homes without fathers, the boys are at a greater risk of being incarcerated, and the daughters are more likely to have, or to get pregnant young, and then also reach puberty before its time, which is now linked, scientists say, is linked to depression. And so the reason I wanted to speak on it was not to condemn Brother Shannon. It was like, look, what can we learn from my brother?
Yeah.
You know, and we're so quick in society, as you were saying, look at the content, but not the context. This has been going on for centuries.
Yeah.
Why does it keep happening? Brother was on his way to sign, what, a $40 million contract for a podcast, or more than that? Yeah, okay. And we still, not him, see a good-looking woman that just happened to us, I want to hit that. The scriptures say a man without self-control is like a city without walls. You know, in ancient times, the walls were the protection of the city. So without self-control, your mind is impenetrable to sin, your weaknesses, your flaws. You can't even have the foresight or the wisdom to see that if I make this decision, this is going to cost me not only my wife, my family, not only my reputation, not only my business, but for most importantly for me, the scriptures say our God is blasphemed amongst the Gentiles because of us. I got too much to lose, hence why I teach men it ain't good enough just to be in love with your wife. That's gonna keep you on the path. You gotta fear the Most High. We have this concept as men, I'm gonna hold you accountable, bro, you hold me accountable, right? That's impossible. Unless I plan to live every second of my day with you. The greatest.
The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Joseph het groot caliber as gevolg van hoe hy last basically gemanhandle het. Almal kan by Joseph leer.
The greatest downfall of man is what?
Walking in the Spirit leads to God's good purpose being fulfilled in our lives.
Genesis
and part of walking in the Spirit is
39.
walking away from temptation. Well, did you know that the story of Joseph also demonstrates the importance of fleeing temptation? All right, let's recap. So Joseph's brothers got jealous of him because they knew he was gifted. They knew that God was with him. And they threw him in a pit and they sold him into slavery. But God was with Joseph, and his gifts and his talents were noticed by an Egyptian official named Potiphar. And he hired Joseph. Well, did you know that when Joseph worked for Potiphar, the wife of Potiphar tried to make sexual advances towards him?
Please, you should not be here.
Really?
And not just once, but on multiple occasions. Okay, let's read this. Genesis 39. So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except for the food that he ate. Now, Joseph was well built and handsome. And after a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." And he refused. And he said to her,
Present day 2025. Ek dink 80% van mans sou gefail het in daai situasie waarin Joseph gewees het. As gevolg van die vrees wat Joseph vir God het het gemaster.
"How could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" Wow. The reason Joseph did not sleep with her was because he did not want to sin against God. He chose righteousness. Now, if Joseph had given in to lust and slept with her, we don't know what would have happened in his story. If Potiphar found out that Joseph was sleeping with his wife, he might have had Joseph killed. Who knows? But so that he could follow God, Joseph chose to not accept her advances. He refused to follow his flesh. He didn't sleep with her. Let's continue. And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. Wow. He was so serious about his walk with God that he would try to avoid her altogether. One day, he went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants were inside. And she caught him by the cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. So this time Joseph runs out of the house. This is the response that we have to sin. We have to repeatedly say no, like Joseph did, and then we have to do whatever we can to avoid it, like Joseph did. And if temptation still shows up, if you gotta run, run. Flee sin at all costs. And so she got mad about that, and she lied and said that he tried to take advantage of her, and she had him thrown in prison. But while there, what happened? He met someone who had connections to the Pharaoh of Egypt, and Joseph found favor with the Pharaoh, and Joseph ended up being placed in charge over the entire land of Egypt. That allowed him from famine. What action allowed for Joseph to be placed in that position? His faithfulness to God.
In obedience.
If he had slept with Potiphar's wife, that entire chain reaction would never have happened. You see the importance of walking in the Spirit? Joseph had to deny his flesh. He had to be thrown in prison so that he could meet the Pharaoh and become a ruler in Egypt so that he could save his entire family. The point is, be faithful to God, because you never know how many lives will benefit from your faithfulness. Now think about this. By saving his family, Joseph ended up saving the entire lineage of God's people, which then preserved the promise that God gave to Abraham, which eventually led to the genealogy of Jesus, who had to be born from that family. And it is through Jesus that we all have faith and are saved. And through that faith, we get to inherit the kingdom. And so all of that is an after effect of Joseph resisting the temptation of his flesh. You see how chain reactions work? And so remember, when you walk in the Spirit, not only will you be blessed, but others will be blessed as well. And so by any means necessary, flee temptation, flee lust, flee sin, run like Joseph with everything you have, because there's too much on your timeline for you to lose.
Amen. James 1:12-15. Let no man say when he is tempted, I'm tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempted he any man. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust is conceived, it bringeth forth sin. And sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. Satan can't force you to sin, he can only entice you. So, op die einde hang het van jouself af, hoe jy deal met lust. Galatians 5:16. I say then, walk in the Spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. Lust is of the flesh. Self-control is one of the fruits of the Spirit. Galatians 5:22-23. Dis 'n vrug van die Heilige Gees. Dit is dieselfde met 'n drankie. Jy kan 'n drankie geniet solank as dat jy self-control het. To overcome lust, we need to have self-control over our eyes en thoughts. Job het 'n covenant met sy oë gemaak dat hy nie wil sin nie. Daai is caliber. And I love how simple yet profound Galatians 5 and 16 is. If we walk and live our life more in God's Holy Spirit, then we are less likely to fulfill the lust of the flesh. God het ons allemaal opgezet vir sukses. As helder soos daglig. 1 Corinthians 10 and 13. No temptation has overtaken you except such as is common to man. But God is faithful, will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able. But with the temptation will also make the way of escape, that you may be able to bear it. Daar het ons gesien hoe Joseph dit gedoen het. Soos ek weer in sê, Satan can't force you to sin, he can only entice you. Ek wil na Revelations toe gaan. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates of the city. I'm reading from Revelation 22, 14 and 15 bysit, omdat ek het klaar ken binnen my, ek sien ek het het gekat. For without our dogs and sorcerers and homemongers and murderers and idolaters and whosoever love it and make it a lie. I'm going to repeat it. Revelation 22:14. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter into the gates of the city. For are the dogs, sorcerers, homemongers, murderers, and idolaters, and whosoever love it and make it a lie. Ek wil hê ons moet gou deur 'n paar scriptures gaan hoe om te deel met lust. Die eerste een is: For this is the will of God, even your sanctification, that you should abstain from fornication. 1 Thessalonians 4 and 3. Lay hands suddenly on no man, neither be partaker of other men's sins. Keep thyself pure. 1 Timothy 5 and 22. But whoso committed adultery with a woman lacketh understanding. He that doeth it destroyed his own soul. Proverbs 6:32. And the last one: Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Matthew 5 and 8. Ek gaan die laaste een. Ek dink ek het nog een gemis. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, in the lust of the eyes, in the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. In the world passeth away, and the lust thereof. But he that doeth the will of God abideth forever. Wherein shall we continue to live in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. Flee and abstain from fornication. Baie alternatiewe hoe om last te face. God het baie alternatiewe vir ons gegee. Fill the void with the word in prayer. Replace lust with love for God. Ik denk ik hoef niet verder te gaan nie. Allemaal het die memo. Like, subscribe voor meer content soos hierdie. En ek sien julle in die volgende episode. Love and blessings. Out.